of these old days, one of these old days, and we won't.
Heyo! What's up, everybody? This is Mike, your host for Transitions for More podcast. This is episode 48. Thanks for joining us today. We're talking once again about reconnecting to mind, body, and spirit. The journey of getting home from combat and finding some purpose and fulfillment in life. Right now, I am drinking some delicious Tattered Beans coffee. We'll have some really exciting news about them, but for now, you guys go to www.tatteredbeans.com. I'll link to it in the show notes. Each time you buy some coffee from them, a no-shit portion of that, about a third of the entire purchase, goes to an individual veteran themselves. No middleman. Straight up supporting vets for buying coffee. I know you like buying coffee, except for my LDS friends. That's cool. Right now I'm drinking some of their Delta Dark. It's good shit. Anyways, our main sponsor today is once again Cowboy Cricket Farms, veteran-owned company based in Montana, where they raise crickets to use as protein. Yum, 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 yum. And if this is the first time you heard this, and you're saying, WT fuck, well, it's good stuff. It's sustainable, supporting vets, and right now I'm looking at something they like to call a chocolate chirp cookie. Get it? It's got 10 grams of protein, 30 crickets inside, all ground up. You don't see any heads or legs. And 10% of your daily value of iron. So that means if I ate 10 of these a day, I get fat as fuck. If you guys want to support this business, which I do, go ahead and go to cowboycrickets.com. Use the promo code VETS. Victor, Echo, Tango, Sierra, VETS. You don't have to be a vet to use the promo code, but you will be supporting them if you do. They got protein powder, and for all you sick fucks out there, / adventurous people, you can get the whole roasted crickets they call smoky jumpers. So head on over. Today's episode, we're talking to Patrick Benson of War Horses for Veterans. This is a heartfelt conversation. Patrick Benson, Army vet, he founded War Horses for Veterans, and it's the premier horsemanship networking and personal growth program in the U.S. They're out of Kansas City, and they're a nonprofit that brings combat vets from across the country together in a safe and peaceful environment during 3 to 4 day programs designed to teach the basics of horsemanship and create a network that will provide outlets for other opportunities and friendships. Peer counseling, horsemanship, and business networking, all brought together, same place. Anyways, Patrick and I talked about just the value of connecting with animals when you get back, especially for us when it's for those of us who have a hard time reconnecting with people. All right, everyone, enjoy this episode. And without further delay, I bring you Patrick Benson. Let's start at the beginning. Tell me about yourself. I mean, you were sergeant in the U.S. Army. What's the brief bio on you growing up and going in?
I was grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. Great family, medical family. They all in the medical field. It just wasn't the thing for me. I was pretty. I did all right. I was good. If I liked the class in school, I would do really well in it. But I did a lot of sports, motocross, a lot of rugby, wrestling. And basically, when I was 19, I kind of decided, I was like, hey, I'm going to go in the Army and join the infantry. And then went from station in Germany, 1998. And so I was in Baumholder, Germany. And then 1999, when the Kosovo campaigns, I had just got to Germany. Was it December 1st? I think it was. What we're doing, I think it was at April, or it would have been March area time frame. For the Kosovo campaigns, and next thing you know, we're pulled out in formation in the middle of the night and said, "Hey, you guys are going to be on the ground in basically 3 days."
Yeah,
and
so we got the call, as they say.
I did get the call, and I'm like, I don't even know what my job is. It's a private, and went over there, and that was a whole different ordeal, and it was a great experience, though. We got to see things. I turned 20 years old in the mountains of Kosovo watching a B-52 bombing strike. So it was awesome right in front of my eyes. So it was really cool up in the mountains there. And but we did that, and then middle of summer got back, and then obviously speed forward, had great opportunities over in Germany and good training, and then we got stationed over in Colorado Springs, and I had wanted to be there because I snowboarded a lot. We did a lot of outdoor stuff, so I did a lot of snowboarding and downhill mountain biking and stuff like that in Switzerland and Europe. So speed forward over there to Colorado Springs, and it was the first time I was like, well, you're gonna be attached to the cavalry. I'm like, I'm an infantry guy, I'm not going to cav. And but when you realize like the history of the cav, you're like, there's a shitload of firepower you have access to.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad gig. And and we got there, and it was a great group. It was small. I had one track, my buddy had the other track, and I was originally 11 Charlie. So my primary MOS 11 Charlie. So we had 120s, so a pretty big gun. And we did really well. We had very fortunate, the soldiers we had, and we were leading a great group of guys. And then 9/11 happened, and obviously I knew we were going to be going to war, which is depending on when this unit was going to get activated. And then in 2003, we went in and we were part of the invasion over in Iraq, and we spent most of our time, which you have been there, is Fallujah, Ramadi, and Habbaniyah. And so that's where I spent most of my whole entire year in 2003.
Yeah, the hot spots there. Yeah, I've walked some of that same ground there. And this is all like a year-long deployment, 2003?
Yeah, 2003, and then they got extended. So my time was up in 2004. So I just literally, I got my last chalk going out was the last chalk going before stop loss. So otherwise I would have been stuck until the following next year late. But they, and actually with that deal, when I left, I was supposed to be on a Black Hawk that unfortunately got shot down, and everyone unfortunately died in that one. And so they had, my buddies in back was, I think they were in Ramadi. I can't remember. And they're trying to figure out where I was, and I got swapped to another deal. So it was an unfortunate event, but yeah, we were Fallujah and Ramadi and Habbaniyah that whole year. So it was kind of, as you know, that place can be like the Wild West. And I felt bad when you guys had to go back in there, because I'll be honest with you, man, that should have never had to happen.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing. And I guess for us, we, having not been in anything major, my first deployment in 2003, we basically just babysat the Mosul airport. We're supposed to go down from the north, and so we didn't do anything. And so we were actually excited that, we'll get to do this whole exciting combat thing finally. And but I mean,
we trained for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
that's what I mean. It was
a ball game, and you never get to play.
Yeah, no, it's the best. I mean, it's it was one of the best times of my life and everything, but it was, obviously they had a few years under their belt to kind of build up their defense and understanding things. But the Fallujah is a kind of shit show can be in that area, because it's it's amazing there. So
and that's the thing. Like from that April of 2004 to November, they had basically 6 months to fortify everything and get ready.
Yep.
So
and the funny thing is that it was actually you at one point you could literally go walk around the streets and not worry about getting shot at or going in engagement, because it did establish our front, like, hey, if you lay rounds at us, we're gonna literally bring in big guns and just completely level this area.
Yeah.
And so then at that point, then they were moving over to Ramadi and that area. So then we got swapped over to Ramadi, and and that was a whole different ordeal. So in 2003 was you're trying to figure the enemy out, enemy's trying to figure you out. You fight. Unfortunately, we lose brothers, and just that's part of war, unfortunately. But then later on, like you guys and what you guys had to do, and then I had friends that had went and been support and did stuff later on, and I mean and unfortunately you had a lot more bureaucracy involved. So
yeah, it's interesting to see how much that plays into the actual fighting. And for you, did you know that like when you were getting out that the you were just missing the cut of stop loss? Did you know that after the fact?
No, I found out after. I was like, it was like I was the last one out. So we were the last group going out. So I was luck of the draw on that one.
Did that mess with you in some ways?
It tore me up. I didn't realize, you're excited about leaving, but at the same time, I was really, my emotions were all really twisted because, that's your family, and those are your brothers.
Yeah.
And to be really technically plucked from them and then thrown in, and I'm going to basically go position to be a civilian. And those are my brothers, those are my family, and as it was very difficult, and it hit me more later on. But it was
like
hard
once
to
you had
cope
time
with.
to let that kind of percolate in your mind.
Yeah, no, it was very difficult. I had no decompression. I had no one to decompress with. And then especially during that time, transition was a joke. I get back, I knew the first sergeant. He's the acting command sergeant major. He's like, say, Sergeant Benson, do whatever you need to do. Just report to me, say hi, and then off I get to do whatever I need to do. And that's fine. But, you're torn. I mean, you went from running 100 miles an hour to this.
That's the weird thing. And I've seen that with a lot of the guys who got back early, either for whatever reason, or that, like the command sometimes would give you that leeway at trying to help you out. But then for a lot of people, just that much time and idle time really was a detriment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even for leaders, it's hard, but you're more apt to hold a little bit more discipline to it. You put the younger enlisted and stuff like that can get into a lot of hot water. Doesn't mean the other guys doesn't mean they can't. But then at the same time, you got, I think, I don't know if it changed later on, but you would come from, combat operations or combat zone. You come in and then they want to act all really hardcore garrison. And you're like, I remember seeing a few, I'm like, this is going to go bad real fast.
Oh,
not good. Yeah, this is not good. This is like, I never got messed with. I mean, I just laugh at them and walk off. But they, not know if that's the right thing to do. But it's like, you're not going to do anything right now. So that's the bottom line. But second of all, the way they would conduct themselves with some of these guys coming back, you're just literally asking for them to snap. I mean, that's just, you've got to slowly transition into the regular, it's the big military. The regular stuff.
Exactly. I mean, uniform inspections and field days and all that stuff, like it doesn't hold that same weight after you've seen, rounds coming and going down range and being in firefights and losing people. The idea that, hey, your ribbons aren't like 1/8 of an inch above the left breast pocket. The first answer in my head is like, well, cool, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I could give a rat's ass about my freaking way. They said if they're not 1/8 of an inch, so I don't give a shit. Actually, don't care about any of the ribbons right now.
Yeah, it's such a weird. I don't think there's any perfect way to come back, but hopefully they're figuring it out a little better. But so you stayed in. When did you get out?
2004. Actually, my official ETS date was was it yesterday? I guess. Yeah, it would have been. It was the 14th. It was Valentine's Day. It was my official ETS date, which is, I don't like that holiday at all. And then, but it was the same day I met my wife.
No kidding.
So yeah, it's kind of it was a blessing. I looked like complete dog shit after doing freaking baling hay and working on a farm all day. And I met out with a bunch of buddies and, we're sitting, we had mutual friends I didn't know, but one of my best friends knew her really well. And we got together and next thing you know, it was on Valentine's Day and a bunch of us were going out and she walks in. I mean, she's freaking hot. I was like, holy crap. And I'm like, well, screw it. I didn't really give a crap. I was still trying to figure myself out and I looked awful. I didn't at all. And so all the guys are hitting on her and they're all pursuing like a bunch of sharks and stuff. And I'm listening and she's traveled the world. She's lived in Spain. She just got back from teaching in Korea and living there and then New Zealand and all these places. And I'm just listening quietly. And I said, oh, you guys are screwed because none of them have been anywhere. And I've been all over, we get the chance to travel the world. And so I said, okay. And then I jumped in, I said, and chatted with her and we talked about different cultures and places. And we found out we were in France the same day, in Paris the same day, Oktoberfest the same day, all these paths. We actually almost crossed paths over the years. And I remember watching all my friends deflate And next thing you know, I mean, we
Game
got,
over.
game over. So a couple years later, we got married. So
Wait, and was this like how long after you had gotten out, or was this while you were in?
No, that's just soon after. I mean, we met in February, and I'd only been home, I think this September, October, November, like December.
Oh,
So
because you were on terminal leave then. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on terminal leave. So I'd only been home for a little bit. I hadn't been home very long. And I was still hell on wheels. It's just like a lot of us. That's kind of where the horses kind of came into play. And the reason I chose horses too, when I was stationed in Germany, and not Germany, but in Colorado Springs, and I had played with horses off and on growing up. I liked them a lot. I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed the peace I had. I'd get away from the Army because in Colorado Springs, you had all the branches there. You had all this military. And so I'd go help out on ranches and volunteered, just give my time, just so I'd be out and just clear my head. And I really loved it. It just was really peaceful. And like, when you're on a rooftop or after fighting or whatever, you're not thinking about a damn cubicle or sales positions or anything like that, or starting, you think of something clarity. And I remember before I left, I was like, I really enjoy this. So I messaged a guy named John program, read his books, and it resonated with me. And actually his brother was force recon in Vietnam. And unfortunately he got killed in Vietnam, but he's a very, very big supporter of the military. And I remember after a deal in Fallujah, I wrote him a letter, and my mom got the letter, and then she sent it over to him. And then he said, and I got it like months later, I finally got mail. We said, keep your head down. You have a spot for you when you get back. And I started in April of 2004, and it was an educational certification program that over a year. And then I kind of kicked off into it and became a clinician and horse trainer. And what the horses did for me was it gave me a very focused area. And then they gave me the adrenaline I was looking for. You're always hunt adrenaline. And a lot of us, we drink a lot, in the military.
Yeah.
But and then you end up taking that. Unfortunately, that tends to be a coping mechanism for us later. And then it becomes a serious issue most of the time. And so, and from my case, I became a very functioning alcoholic, technically, in a way. I've been dry for a while, but the thing is the horses gave me clarity. They gave me a lot of peace. I didn't understand what my emotions were going through. I didn't understand those things. My horse Scooter that I had when about 2000, I was in 2005, I met him, and it was through a client of mine, and he was wild as all batshit crazy. And he was in a beautiful horse, but he was this woman called me and asked to help. I came in, this horse was rearing in the stall, kicking the walls, going nuts. And I just went in, I was calm as can be, looked at him, and he came down, and I just looked at him and said, "Hey, you done?" And he just kind of stared at me, and then I threw a halter on him, and he followed me out, and literally him and I were attached to the hip ever since then. And he had,
wow.
And it was kind of hard. It's hard to explain, but it was the first thing that I was emotionally attached to after war. It was the first thing I allowed myself to be vulnerable to. And I think vice versa.
You think that's because like both of you were kind of your minds were spinning, things were a little chaotic, so you guys saw each other for like, hey, we're kind of in the same state right now. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And and he was very intimidating. He was really putting up this big persona, and yeah, he was, but he had a lot of energy and all this. But I remember when I took him back to the farm, and I kicked him out in this paddock so he can have some time to run around, get some energy out. He was fine and calm if I was by outside the fence, but the moment I left and went somewhere else, he would lose his shit. Like, he'd completely lose his mind, run and freak out. But the moment I come back, he'd calm down and start grazing again. And then I did it a couple of times, and the owner, Mimi, said, "Hey, every time you leave, he loses it." I was like, well, this is going to be a long night, And so, but over time, what it ended up doing is you've heard the connections between animals and soldiers and stuff like that, and service members, especially, or people that have been through trauma or whatever the case may be. It happens. It really does happen. And it was a blessing, to be honest with you. We traveled the country. I did clinics everywhere. I could do so many tricks on him. He let me do anything I want to him. I used to flip him on his back, land on his belly. I could do anything I wanted on that horse. And he was awesome. We started a ton of horses together. I did everything with him all over the country. We traveled a lot. And, and unfortunately he got an injury in his leg, and I doctored it for 14 months every day. And then he had ripped it open, went into a stress colic. Basically, he just was under so much pain. He had an impaction in his intestine, and horses don't throw up, so they only pass things through their intestinal line. And his large and small intestine ruptured, and there's nothing you can do with that. And he was put down, and I'm not an emotional. I don't cry. I don't have any things like that. But that was when that happened. It was like, I think the way I explained it is all my feelings and not understanding feelings and emotions and all that stuff like came to the surface and just bursted open. And I was a hot mess for like 2 days. I just think it was a compound of everything. I never really looked at things.
Yeah. All the things have been held back, but when you're so close to someone, and that happens, then everything like rushes through that opening of vulnerability. And I can relate just in the fact in October, I had to put a dog down that I got right after I got out of the Marine Corps. And like you're saying with Scooter, I had that same thing with my little dog, Jose. And I knew I'd be sad because I kind of saw it coming towards when we'd have to put him down. But just like you're saying, everything, even stuff I thought I dealt with, like everything just like, funneled right through that. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah. I couldn't I literally cannot control when I speak to people, or if I do speaking engagements, and if I do use this story, it still will choke me up. And but it's the thing is like, I have no control. Like I have no control. I can act, I can do whatever, but then I can talk about all this other stuff. You create things. Time I was vulnerable, and I allowed it, like you're saying, and it all rushes to the surface. But he was the one that taught me forgiveness. He taught me to be compassionate. He taught me to be patient. He taught me to do all these things. Man, he was always forgiving. If I screwed up, he would always say, "Oh, try to not do that again. I'll let you try it again and again and again and again and again." And the horses, it's amazing. They mirror you too. And so I would get, and I still had him. I would pick the most rank horses I could find. And if you aren't focused, if you're not laser focused on a lot of those horses that are pretty dangerous, you're going to get hurt. I mean, that's just bottom line. You're going to get hurt. And nothing else existed. I'd have to drop my heart rate. Nothing else existed in the world. And I didn't realize that's what it was doing for me until years later. I really 8 years. Smells were triggering things. I was having memories, and I remember being in the barn, and these women were complaining about something, and I never talked to my service. Most of them had no idea that I actually served, or if they did, they had no idea what my job was. And I remember going, I think it was like if I could tell you something in 30 seconds, and you'll never complain about another thing the rest of your life. And I remember leaving, and I said, I'm done. And I pulled all my horses and changed my environment. I didn't understand what was going on. I changed my diet. I quit drinking. I just didn't know what these emotions and what they're happening. And basically what it was, the signs of PTSD, and all those different things. And I had no idea. I just, you learning about TBIs, and last year found out, I know I had it, but we got diagnosed officially last year. And you're learning all these different variables and what are these emotions? And so a buddy of mine, Corey, I had come up. We served together, and he was in my squad, and we came up and talked. I said, "Hey man, I think I need to talk. Man, I haven't talked to anybody." And he came up, and we talked about things. And then he remembered a lot of stuff that I didn't remember. And there's a reason why I didn't remember, because with the situations we were in. But, he was explaining to me how bad the transitioning has been gotten, and how bad a lot of the guys were doing getting out. Things were not good. And so I started kind of thinking about what I was doing for a living I realized was saving my ass, and was life-changing for me. And so kind of putting those things in place and thinking about, what it had done for me, and knowing that it could do quite a bit for other veterans. And I had a I was doing a clinic out east one time, and I would do problem horses afterwards. And so I'd do 3-4 day clinics. Well, this old guy came up to me. He said, "Hey, you do a really good job with those horses." And I said, "Oh, thank you. I appreciate it." He goes, you fixing those horses, but you realize they're fixing you. And I kind of look at him, and he looks at me and goes, "You're a vet." And I said, "So are you." and he said, "Yeah." And he was special operations. He was a Green Beret from Vietnam. And we just talked. And he goes, I remember his name. He's like, "How do you feel?" And I said, "I feel great." Felt like a big weight was lifted. It's the first time I really kind of vaped about it a little bit. And I was like, holy, and he was into horses, and he said horses saved his life. Because if you want to, you can go get one. And if you want adrenaline rush, they'll give it to you. If you, at the same time, you think you're the toughest, baddest person on the planet, you can go get a horse and they will humble you so fast and remind you that you're definitely not the baddest person on the planet. And so there's such a balance to it. But at the same time, the same horse that could be teaching you about humility can be teaching you about compassion, can be teaching you about patience, can be teaching you about so many different variables that actually apply in your everyday life. And you don't think about it. I think especially when you're young, you're like, I'm just thinking about gunning and running and all the stuff. And I'm going to do this, this, and this. But I didn't realize in the back end, all these wonderful things that this was doing for me.
That's interesting too. And as you're talking, it seems like we can get that better with certain animals, maybe because they don't, we're not speaking in words all of a sudden, or they're not speaking back to us. It's like sometimes the words, that we're using from person to person really get in the way of the actual communication. And you didn't have that problem with horses or with dogs. No,
and they don't judge. A dog's always a dog's thing is you get out of the crappiest day in the world, that dog's always happy to see you. Yeah. You come home. They're always loyal. You treat them good. They'll be there they'll be up by your side the whole time. A horse, very similar. Horse it's a 1,000-pound animal. So it can have similar different things in comparison, but they're both a dog and a horse play different roles, but they're very similar roles. But the horse is, that's an intimidated, 1,000, 1,300-pound animal that, eventually you're allowing yourself not to be in total control. So you give some control over this horse, and you have to guide and lead this horse. But if that horse says, "Yeah, I want to lead you and I'm going to show you what I want to do," well, then that can get to be a little sketchy and could be quite scary. So with that, at the same time, you have to learn to be vulnerable and give yourself over. And so that's where I've seen it with many, many, many. I've seen Marines, Army, all of us, especially combatant side of things, come in and just be really, really super nervous, anxiety through the roof. And then, within minutes, next thing you know, it's down. And then when they're on their back, they're really nervous. They're just getting that, like, man, everything looks so different from up here. The decompression, you literally watch a shell kind of chisel off them, and then showing them, teaching them a trade. I don't get really, in the beginning, I really don't push this as a kumbaya, touchy-feely. It's not a typical equine program that you usually would go to. I base it off of, teaching a trade. But is it therapeutic? Oh, gosh, yes. But there's a phrase I use. I say, horses are the bridge and veterans are their own best therapy. So we know what we need. We know we need each other. But the horses are so effective in how we do it. No one's psychoanalyzing you. No one's doing anything like that. You've got a bunch of, you got your own people, and you're learning a trade. This trade put a roof over my family's head, gave me these opportunities, gave me the opportunity to put, like we wouldn't be talking right now. Yeah. If I wouldn't pursue the horse industry, and I did. And I fortunately, it's a tough industry, but I did well. War horses is opportunity. War horses is leadership. War horses is, mentors. And that's how I look at it. And I remember being at a horse show in Kentucky. I'm sitting with these owners that I had, that they're just wonderful people. And I'm just thinking, man, it'd be cool. I'm sitting here. I can ask them anything about life, business, opportunities, and everything. And it's at my fingertips. And what if vets had the same opportunity I had right now? And that's kind of where that was kind of coming forward. And, kind of going back to where in 2008 and leading into that, a client of mine kind of got me into triathlons. She said, "I think you need something to challenge you outside of horses." And I was like, "Well," she goes, "Well, you should try a triathlon." I'm like, "All right, cool. I'll do it." And I did. And actually, this is where war horses really kicked off. I was on mile 3 of a 5-mile run. and forgave everything. Just, the survival guilt, just the stuff that you had no control over.
Mm-hmm.
Forgave it for everything. And that was my liberation. And then I was okay with things. I was okay to be asked about war. I was okay to be asked about a lot of things.
How did that come up? Do you think, because I know my own experiences of like intense physical effort, or I get to the point where in my mind, I just stop resisting the discomfort. And so it shows up. And if I can allow it to be there, I can relate to what you're saying in my own way. How do you think it came up for you though?
I think over time, I always push really hard all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of things. So if I pick to do something, I usually go pretty all out. If you ask any of the team and group stuff, if we do something, we're going to do it big. We're going to go pretty hard at it.
Yeah.
But I think it's taking to where you're taking your endorphin and then, like you're saying, the intensity to a level to where it's super uncomfortable, it's scary, or it hurts and all that stuff. And it becomes very real. But then once you accomplish it and you break through that, it's a you get the endorphins, but it's a sense of relief and sense of accomplishment. And in running, there's very, very, very many things like for running or cycling or a lot of different things where you can get lost in your head, and it's so therapeutic, and eventually a lot of times you end up able to hash out a lot. A lot of my best ideas are when I'm on my bike or I'm working out or on a run. I just been able to come up with the best ideas. So I think more or less, it was the new challenges, the fear, overcoming fear, understanding what fear, different types of fear. I think that allowing yourself to be vulnerable is a pretty terrifying experience, because that you're leaving yourself very open. And so that means emotions. And most of us, especially that have served and especially in combat and stuff, we're very closed off emotionally. And like my wife would say, and it's very common, you're very cold. And marriage, very, very cold. And a marriage counselor we went to really helped. And I never really understood it until she had brought it up, and it made a lot of sense to me. She had told my wife, hey, when he feels attacked, he will shut down emotionally. She goes, and it's not because he doesn't care. It's a survival mechanism, because when you're and it made sense, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's what you do in war all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
In a sense, you shut down emotionally. You care about men and mission, execute. You don't care about anything, bodies, whatever. You don't care. There's no emotion whatsoever. And that's how you survive. If you allow those emotions to overcome you, well, then we have an issue, because then there's a chance, there's a possibility of you making the wrong decision. People can die, you can get killed, and all those variables come into play. So, yeah, exactly. So it's very hard to shut off. And I mean, they don't teach you that. Hey, when you go and you're having arguments with your wife, I want you to think about not shutting down and becoming the coldest person on earth that has no emotions, because she would be like, I remember her and I were talking about not too long ago. She's like, do you remember, like, I'd be crying and you just look at me like, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? Why are you even being, this doesn't make any sense. And no compassion and stuff. And it takes a long time,
and you're right. Like all these things, you don't recognize them until afterwards. Cause in the moment, like it's just the body, our training takes over. And like you get that signal of like feeling attacked, and then you just shut off, because I mean, for war, it makes sense. And it's just, some of it's a sign of, good training that we got. And it's just knowing afterwards that you need to be retrained.
No, absolutely.
There's something interesting too about like what you're saying. Training a horse, or being with a horse and being vulnerable, where these guys can get on there and, like you said, trust is really hard to come by with a lot of combat vets. And so you give them that experience where they can trust and have a good experience, and their body learns that, oh, okay, this is okay. I'm not going to die if I make myself vulnerable here. Right.
Well, it's an important thing. And then on top of it too, is like, when they come in, we started it with, when you come in and work with the horses and you're around a bunch of other vets from Vietnam era too. We got freaking scout pilots. We got SEALs from Vietnam. We got the LERPS teams from Vietnam, and all these brothers and all of us together and sisters have, fought in war. The thing about it is all the BS and bullshit's gone. And if, literally there's been times where a couple guys, their pressure valve popped for being there. But it's because internally they're like, okay, we're safe here. This is fine. And it does it. And guess what? Every single one of us around like, no, you're good, dude. Don't worry about it. We got you. We've done it, been through it, or we got someone that's getting ready is going to have to. And more or less, it's just like, you can't hold it in for so long. And as men are worse because we hold on the outside. We're tough. We're holding on, blah, blah. But on the inside, we're like, I'm freaking out. I have anxiety. I have depression. I don't know how to hold these emotions. I'm losing my shit, And so, to be able to come out, and it's not that's what we focus on. But the good thing about it is if you can get to that point, man, dude, it opens up a whole nother world to you, and you're able to kind of just move on and move forward, because it's never good to live in the past. You can learn from the past. Don't want to repeat the past that are bad or good, but take the good and move forward, but then learn from what was wrong, what was bad. But, don't let the past define, it's what you do forward is what's important. And so, the Browns, the co-founders, Andy and Patricia Brown, to kind of explain how that came into play, where we have this beautiful, amazing property and opportunity there in Kansas City, there in Stillwell, Kansas. Andy Brown had offered his play. He needed help with a stallion, and the person that was helping him out with his horses at the time I had done something with one of their horses, and she said, we really like you to come down and check out one of our horses down here, and I think you'd really like the owner. And Tom was like, no, I'm good. I got plenty of business. I'm happy. I'm doing really well. And it was a long drive from where my operation was, and finally I was like, yeah, I'll go. I'll check it out, and I saw their horse, and it was an easy fix, but they didn't have, they had a beautiful place down there, but no indoor arena, no outdoor arena, no really safe place to ride horses. But I just took them out field and rode them and was doing these things because I had a background in, with the reining cow horse and Western stuff. And then I did a lot of dressage and show jumping as well, and jumping horses and eventing. So I made sure I was diverse because I liked the challenge of all the different disciplines. And it taught me a lot too. It taught you to be humble. When I felt that I was getting too comfortable, I would purposely go do something and challenge myself. And I call them the humbling shows or humbling experiences because,
yes.
When I think I'm really badass, I need to get put in check. So that's usually when I would kind of do that kind of stuff for me. And it was always healthy to kind of look at things like that. And I met Andy, and I needed a mentor personally. And the horses he was doing and things he was doing are completely different from what I was pursuing. But in that point in my life, I needed him. But we've chatted about it. I needed him just as much as he needed me. So it's kind of there's a reason for everything. So we kind of hit it off. He's a very vocal man. He doesn't hold anything back. What comes to his mind comes out of his mouth a lot. So. But he's got him and his wife have the biggest hearts ever, and they love their service members. They love the military, and they obviously show it too. And first time I met him, I was working one of his little pain in the butt horses at the time, and he came out. And I said, "Well, who the hell are you?" And he goes, "Who the hell are you?" And I said, "Well, who the hell are you?" And he goes, "I own this fucking place." And I was like, "All right, I think I'm gonna like this." And I'm gonna like this guy. Next thing you know, we went in and talked. He played rugby. I played rugby. We had a lot in common. And then, I went down and started working. And then the next thing you know, I took over his operation. And after one day working horses, I sitting on the front porch, and we had, having a cocktail or whatever. And he's like, "I want to help you guys." And I was like, what the hell you mean? He goes, I'd like to help you with veterans. And I said, well, I got an idea. I know it'll work, but it'll be expensive, but it'll work. So I told him, and literally 30 minutes later, he says, "Get it started. We'll fund it. We'll kick it off, get it started." And I was like, all right. And here we are talking. That's how, like that's really how
the perfect timing for all this to come together.
It did. It was I look back. I mean, it was a huge challenge. We had 38 horses at the time that we're downsizing from. I didn't have all the amenities you have really for a regular operation to train that had that many horses. They were all over the country. And at the same time, I'm starting a nonprofit from scratch. And we're restructuring a horse business, and then we're starting this other stuff. So you think about the story of it, it's actually kind of crazy, to be honest with you. If you were to ask me to do that today, I'd be like,
Yeah, there's so many things that I can see like that I'm glad I did it, but knowing how hard it would be beforehand, like ignorance is bliss in that sense.
It is, proving yourself. And, it was a huge amount of sacrifice for my family. I mean, it really was. And it was, I worked 24/7 for years, but I was so focused on our goal, and it was different. It's obviously it's very different because it's not a widget. It's not a sale. It's not a product. In a way, it's just there's a lot of emotion involved with it. There's so much meaning behind what we do. It's just like anything with a nonprofit, but from being a combatant and understanding that, I chose, combat veterans because that's what I understood, and to be very specific about what we needed. And I just thought about everything I didn't have when I left. I thought about mentors. I thought of listening to stories of a lot of the veterans, opportunity, and at the end of the day, it's all in who you know, so it's all these pieces coming together. But the thing is, though, you could have all these amazing resources. You could have the best resource thing. Hey, Mike, I've got the best job for you in the world right now. But emotionally, you're not ready. Mm-hmm. But you know what? You're like, okay, I'm going to take this. I'm going to not say no. But then you probably, there's a good chance you're going to fail because you just weren't emotionally, you just weren't ready. And the thing is when you get to know the vets, and in fact, with our program, it's completely free. We fly you in from all over the country. And on top of it, you can come back as often as you want, as long as you help. The biggest thing is help and bring in other combat vets and take care of them and become a leader in that aspect of things and become a mentor. Well, then you start learning about those individuals and what they want to pursue and different things like that. And then a lot of times, like, hey, I'm really interested in whatever field, or I want to start a business or whatever. Next thing you know, you may be sitting down with a person who owns a pretty significant organization or company or whatever the case may be, and you're having, you're sitting around a pool talking to this person, and next thing you know, a few doors have just got opened up for you, and you got a mentor, and that's how a lot of deals get done. I mean, that's just really
be in the right place, knowing the right people. That's a really cool thing that I've seen with War Horses for Veterans that I haven't seen in other places. It just maybe doesn't get thought of, but you add that component of networking, providing opportunities for people to meet the people they need to meet to succeed.
Well, absolutely. I mean, think about it. If I come in and I'm saying, well, this is a networking only, you're coming here to find an opportunity and a job. You already got this built up. You're putting a wall up, or you're putting this persona out and all that. Well, you're really not very open to receive really much, more or less, or you're not very open to actually give information out and actually give the right information. You're trying to prove something or whatever the case may be. Well, when you're around a bunch of, you got 06s to E1s to all these different ranks, hanging out together, working horses don't give a shit what your rank is. I sure as don't give a shit what your rank is.
Yeah, exactly.
And, and all that. And the next thing you know, you're just a big family. You're just a bunch of brothers. And then you really get to know each other. And I'm telling you, man, I've watched some pretty hard-headed individuals become, just really open up. Not so much about the emotional stuff, but just open up. And they just smile and they're laughing. I remember listening to a Marine one time petting a horse, and he didn't know I could hear him. He goes, I haven't been this happy in a long time. And he was thanking the horse, and that opened up ideas and opportunity. And I can do this. And the biggest thing, like with the horse side of stuff, this is the cool thing. When I thought about it, I was like, well, if you're going to come do horses, you're not going to just work any horse. You're going to work good horses. I don't want you limited in what you can and can't do on a horse, because I don't want you thinking what you're not limited in what you can and can't do in the civilian life. So if you think about it, if you see, oh man, I'll never get to do that on a horse, but then in 2 days you're doing it, or that afternoon possibly you're doing it because
exactly.
you took to it.
And you start to question, like, well, if I did this, then what else can I do? All of a sudden, like, the doors that were closed are not necessarily closed anymore.
Exactly. I mean, you can get some sketchy situations with a horse and you overcome a lot of fear and you build confidence. You are taller. I've had other vets that they're taller. They feel good. And then on top of it, like I said, you can come back and you can help. We do a lot of reunions, so you can come back, and reunions bring closure, tons of closure. Or you have buddies out there that are just hurting. You can tell they're having a hard time. Like, hey, there's a deal. They'll cover everything. I got 5 of us. Why don't you come in? You're going to meet, at the end of the day, you're going to eat great food. You're going to meet great people. They always love the horses, and it all works out really well. But don't build it up too much. The one thing is, we'll trust our own. Mm-hmm. If our own says, hey, if one of your brothers says, hey, this is a good deal, you need to come, they're like, Roger that. I'm in, and they'll go. And then you don't realize that, sometimes I'll get, mostly it's men, but I'll get guys that will be like, oh, no, I'm good. I don't want to take that from someone else. I'm like, no, you're cool. I said, hey, you're doing great. You know what? I need you even more because you're doing so well. I think you need to come and be an example and be the leader with that group and bring your guys in. Well, technically, when they finally come through and they're all hanging out and stuff, they're like, I needed this more than anybody. I'm like, yeah, we kind of knew that, but
yeah. It's so hard. I mean, our family members and people around us see it before we ever do, because when we come back, people have PTSD or whatever it is, it just becomes normal the way we deal things. And we're like, no, I'm good.
Anger.
I am, right?
No. Yeah, I'm good. I'm fine, but I'm just pissed off all the time. I hate everyone. I don't like civilians. I have and then all of a sudden I'm having anxiety and I don't know why I have anxiety. And then all of a sudden I'm.
Yeah, it's they're just providing that opportunity for people to see it, because what I like about what you're saying and what you guys are doing is you're letting people find that out for themselves. The stubbornness that got us through boot camp, that got us through combat, sometimes keeps us from realizing that we need to do some work. So it's that double-edged sword, but you guys provide the opportunity for those people to see it themselves and say, okay.
It's their weekend. Like if you come, it's your week. I mean, we have a guideline, there's a structure to it, but it's your week. And we adjust it to each group because each group's different. Each person's different, all that stuff. And so, and there's always someone, we have a phenomenal team of individuals here that, everyone's comfortable putting their shit on the table. Mm-hmm. Everything, put it all on the table, and that's a big deal. I mean, you got it from the Vietnam era all the way.
Yeah,
I'm not alone too. It's okay to be like this and talk like this and say these things, and a lot of time it's decompression time. If you look at past wars, World War II and different times like that, they came back on ships at times, and they had sometimes months together, mm-hmm. decompressing. And then the Vietnam era, they're just plucking at different times. So you saw worse issues of that because you're in a dramatic environment. Next thing you know, you're plucked from your family, like kind of similar situation with like me and a lot of other veterans. And then you're plopped into a completely foreign area that you don't have your support group, you don't have your support team. And you're very vulnerable. You put up walls, you put up guards, and it's most of the time it's not that successful. And so with that, it's like I always talk to people, when you go and you try to tackle these issues, I always explain, I said, would you clear an obstacle by yourself? Oh, hell no. I said, well, then why in the hell would you try to do this by yourself? I said, you stack up on a wall to go clear an obstacle, but even though it can get sketchy and there's probably a good chance there's going to be some bad stuff in there, but you're still going to go in because you feel better because you've got a team. Well, It's the same concept. You need a team to deal with all this stuff. And trust me, you see some of the toughest guys you think that are the toughest guys ever, and they're hurting, man. Like they're dealing with a lot of stuff. And the sooner you can kind of get it out and, like I said, be vulnerable, but at the same time be strong with it, and that's being strong is doing that. I think being, like you say, active, the triathlons helped me kind of tap into that a little quicker. Having clarity of thought, more or less, making sure that you're being, when you get active, it's obviously one of the first things that if you read everything about mental health and all that stuff, eat a good balance, eat a good diet, eat a clean diet. You don't have to be a gym rat, but go get mobile, get off and get that, because natural endorphins start getting released and all those things. That's a good start.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. The more I learn, because for my daily job, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and so I know the therapy theories and all those things, and I do that every day with vets. But the more I learn about them, the more it comes back to these basic things that we'll do all these studies and say, well, it turns out getting really good sleep is good for you. Well, no shit.
Well, shit. Yeah. I know. Well, and I started War Horses Hemp. We're launching it 1st of March. War Horses Hemp with all the CBD products, making them. We spent $1,000 finding the best products I could find, and we formulated these deals and make it very affordable for vets. And I'm only allowed to give half, but half the proceeds will go back to War Horses and veteran and causes that we do to bring back and support. But I know it's been a big game changer for me. Like you mentioned, sleep. I've been last year did a lot of studying on sleep, and I still do. And my wife said it's the best. I've slept the best since I've started doing that on a regular basis. And
That's
My
awesome.
quality, yeah, and a buddy of mine does about 30. He did 30%. Now he's at 80% quality sleep.
Wow.
And that's huge.
That is huge. I mean, I could bore everyone to death and probably misquote most of the stuff about all the things that happen when you sleep, but you really don't need to know it. All you need to know is that if you're getting good quality sleep, you're going to be a lot better. Your body's going to be ready to go. You're going to be able to function.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think more or less, we're going to be focused. I've got some things we're working on for nutrition and health, and everyone does their own version of it, but I just think the highest quality products you can. We're getting ready to put a big covered arena with a pretty 60 by 40 lounge, the veterans lounge, and we'll have a nice kitchen in there. So we'll have lots of culinary stuff. So we're going to do a lot of different types of cooking. So when vets come in, we'll have chefs come in and work and do stuff with us and just eat badass meals and have these amazing experiences with horses, and have this good experience at the same time, learn from each other. How do we tackle this together? And how can we do this going back into your everyday life? Because the thing is like when you leave, it's like you don't want it to be like a Disneyland effect. Come in, oh, it's so magical and wonderful. But then you go back to reality in 2 weeks, you freaking dropping off the edge. But the fact that when you leave, you're like, no, you still got to work at it, man. You got to bust your ass. You really have to bust your ass at this. And I like to agree with the phrase, no one owes you anything.
Yeah,
but
I love that.
You have a team of people, a good family, and like with the Warhorse family, you all support each other. Like I had the Warhorse games we kicked off last year, and I mean we have a couple vets training now for the games August 17th, and they're all competed equal. We just adjust certain equipment for the adaptives, but that's about the extent of it.
That's so bad. It's like a CrossFit Games kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's blown the hell up.
I saw. Yeah, I was looking at the pictures like that. That's a legit setup.
Yes, yeah, it was. And we pulled. That was a very quick turn. We did it. We had started in 5 months, and then really whipped it together in 3.5 months. And so it was an endeavor, but it changed a lot of lives. Changed my life. I got tired of kind of hearing vets kind of find excuses for everything. Yeah. And then if you got a 12-year-old girl that's in a wheelchair out there in front of a massive crowd of people crushing it, and you've got men and women with with a prosthetic leg and all this, and people in wheelchairs doing rope climbs and pull-ups, I'm like, okay, I really don't want to hear.
It's funny. The same thing got me into open water swimming. Sometimes we need kind of getting called out like that. I had a Vietnam vet actually who really pushed me probably into endurance sports more than anyone. There's an Alcatraz swim that he put on with Boy Scouts. And he was trying to pitch this as, hey, I want to get a bunch of vets together. We go jump out, take a boat out to Alcatraz and then swim back to San Francisco. It's about 1.1 miles. What do you say? And I was like, no, like sharks, cold. I hate swimming. No. And he said, oh, that's cool. I mean, I guess all these Boy Scouts doing it. Maybe it's just for the merit badge. Maybe it's just age appropriate. But I mean, I thought Marines, I thought that was your thing, but I could be wrong. He just straight up called me out, and I was so I did it and I loved it. But just having that, and like what you're saying, taking vets and showing like, look, man, in this situation, you're just holding yourself back. Like, try it out. Don't let that fear be that barrier to you. And it's such a cool thing, man. I'm truly inspired by what you have going, and not just that. You're not just like a one-trick pony. You have so many different avenues of how you're helping people, and like in so many different ways. It's not just a one simple thing.
Yeah, no, it's I'm blessed and honored to do and be in a position what we're doing, but it takes people like yourself and all of us to get together and do things and support each other to kind of take it to the next level. And I'd like to just, I want to have fun doing it. If we're going to do it, might as well have fun doing it. And it does. I mean, we've had vets leave and they start businesses. They've got new careers, jobs. They have vets move here to Kansas City and got new jobs and careers. It's blossoming into amazing, but I like to even if you don't have to know anything about horses, it's something out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone, try something different. I promise you won't regret it. Like, you will not regret it. I have not had any veteran go, this sucks. This is the worst experience ever. And they're like, no, everyone, they love it. It's obviously it's growing and different opportunities are coming about, but I was thinking, I was looking into your stuff and reading and chatting with you. I'd like to figure out how we can, get together and do a couple things this year together.
The gears in my head have been turning, and I have a few ideas, and we definitely need to be talking again, both on the show and off, about all the cool things we can put together. Cause I have some good ideas.
Well, let's do something. Cause I want to get a, even if we combine forces and stuff and put together an endurance team or a tri team together, like a warhorse tri team or something like that, we do something, but we pick something different from all over. And, we find some vets that, have been part of the family or with what you got going on and what you're doing, and incorporate that. And even if you do have some veterans that would be interested, you and we could talk and maybe get a group, and you could bring a group of vets out. Well, like I said, we pay for everything, so we cover all their cost. Yeah,
I'm probably going to take you up on that, because that sounds pretty cool. I got some guys from my unit as well as some clients here, but definitely who need to be part of that.
Let's get your unit together. Let's do it, because we did was it 223 infantry out of Lewis. We've had I think like 53 of them come through the program. So I mean, it's worth it. It's worth it.
Believe me, I have just minimal experience riding Peruvian passos with my grandma growing up, and just the handful of times I've been on the back of a horse and spending time in the quiet too has just shifted my life. And I think, yeah, exactly. So before we close up for this episode of the show, and I definitely want to have you on the show back a lot of times, so we can really get into some more things. Where can people find you, and how can people get in touch with you or get connected with the Warhorses for Veterans?
Warhorsesforveterans.org, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, all the social plugs that you can find on that. But warhorsesforveterans.org, like I said, support by network connections. You can host events, do different things. We do thrive off of donations, so it's all privately, like donations coming in. We don't take government funds, so there's no red tape. So it allows us to do what we got. Yeah, it allows us to do what we got to do. And we've been very grateful and very successful with it.
That's awesome. Well, and I'll link to all this stuff in our show notes for the episode. And no, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, man. It's been a pleasure finally to get together. I know we're both busy people, so this is really kudos to John for setting this up too.
No, absolutely. It's an honor, and I'm really glad, because when I got to read up on you, I was like, oh, cool, another triathlete.
All right, thank you to Patrick Benson for coming on the show. Everyone, be sure to go check out Warhorses for Veterans. Check out the link in the show notes and see if it's right for you to go experience some horsemanship, meet some cool people, maybe bring your own unit. All right, thanks to our sponsors, Cowboy Crickets, Fireteam Whiskey, Zilios, Green Wolf Tactical. Thanks to Tattered Beans. And everyone, please subscribe to the show. Tell a friend. Send them an episode. There's a little share button. And if you can, and if you already subscribed, leave us a review. Go ahead and do that. Just click it right now while you're listening to these sick beats. That helps us reach people who need to be hearing the show. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about connecting those of us who are still hurting. It's about connecting those of us who are having a difficult time with that readjustment coming back home. Maybe they needed to hear this episode. Maybe this is someone who'd benefit from equine therapy, from horsemanship, from just hearing about vets talking about how they've readjusted getting back home. That's the whole point of the show. All right, guys. Thank you once again for listening. We'll see you next week. Until then, remember, drink water, meditate, kill bodies. Yo!